Testing, testing. Today is December 24th, the year 2024. Can you hear me well? Maybe a little bit more sound, yeah. So maybe we can listen to the sound of the bell. Just relax and enjoy our breathing. Just center to the present moment. Dear Thầy, dear friends, dear community, we just welcome you to the Christmas Day, I think December 24th, 2024, and we are at the Great Togetherness Meditation Hall at the Blue Cliff Monastery in New York. So today we celebrate the birthday of a good spiritual teacher named Jesus Christ. Once in a while it falls on some brother, sister to share about this Christmas Day. And I'm still a beginner student of Christianity. Even I come to Buddhism much later too, because I read a lot about Zen, about the Sutra, as well as the Bible. But I not fully comprehend, because it kind of, it's a lot of information. And I think it takes some time to really connect with ourselves personally in our life. So when I was young, I studied also, but I didn't feel that it has a connection to help me with my life, with my spirituality. So sometimes you have to do some research and dig deeper. So what I'm going to share with you is my understanding of Christianity. I think I'm going to stand up, so. So what I'm going to share to you is how I come to be introduced to Christianity, at least the way I see it, because I study as a young teenager and a student the Bible, but it's kind of difficult to understand. And what people say and what people practice, somehow it doesn't connect with me. In high school, I study under the French education. And one of the things is the idea of Renaissance man is we try to study as many subjects as possible, to do investigation, to search for the truth. And whenever it connected, then it had to make sense to us. So to me, I approach a lot to in a scientific manner. I tested to see whether what people say resonate with my life or not, rather than just believe what people say, you know. So my father is agnostic too, and I think many in my family are agnostic too. So, and then later I will share with you a wider view on the teaching of Christianity. I try to take a more liberal approach, maybe a Buddhist approach to Christianity. So I want to apologize to a lot of people because I don't know enough about Christianity. So I only see what I come up upon information, how I understand the teaching of Jesus. And next I will show you the similarity between Christianity and Buddhism, the way I understand it. And I will cite a few good examples of some Christian that I encounter, I work with, I know of. And I think to me, the theme is let's say, living Buddha, living Christ. That means we are a descendant of the Buddha, and we are the continuation as a living tradition of the Buddha, as we are also the continuation of the living Christ. That means we are descendant of Jesus Christ, and his teaching and his spirituality still resonate with us, with our heart, with our soul. So I was first introduced to Christianity the way I see it with my very first retreat at the Omega Institute. I think in 1993, I met our teacher in Philadelphia at the Quaker Center on 15 and Cherry. And I was very impressed of how his was forbearing, his presence, our teacher. And I got curious because my mom went to Plum Village before, and she gave to me a book, The Miracle of Mindfulness. So I read a little bit, but I didn't really have enough time to practice. And when I met in person Thầy, our teacher, I see that there are certain aura, a certain energy that he spread out that I'm very curious. So I start to reading a lot of books of our teacher. And in 1995, I joined the local Sangha. And then a few months later, they say, well, Thầy is giving a retreat at Omega Institute. So that is my very first retreat at Omega Institute, Introduction to Buddhism as well. And I didn't know at that time, but at the bookstore, and Thầy announced at that time the publication of the book, Living Buddha, Living Christ. I think it was published in May or June 1995, and my retreat is at September 1995, and I got myself a first copy of the book, Living God, Living Christ. And of course, I'm curious, so I bought it. And as I read it, I say, wow, this is going to be very interesting. Because Thay, a Buddhist teacher, is talking about Jesus, talk about Christianity. And at that time, I didn't know the history of Thay, how he studied as a student at the Princeton Theological Seminary in Princeton, and then he went on to study at the Union Theological Seminary in New York and at Columbia University. And he interacted with a lot of Christian brothers, a lot of Christian scholars. So he was very well studied and also connected with the practice and understanding of Christianity. So I read the introduction by Brother David Steindl Rast, and also the introduction by Elaine Pagels. And I didn't know at the time, but in the book, Thay mentioned about the Gospel of Thomas. The understanding of the Gospel of Thomas is very interesting because it's one of the Gospel that was discovered in a cave in Nag Hammadi in Egypt around 1945. And the story is it took 2 years before people understand the significance of the discovery. That's why sometimes for some book they mention 1945, for some book 1947. So there was an Egyptian Bedouin. He was looking for fertilizer. He digged the earth from the cave, and he found up on a big jar. And in the big jar, there are parchment that were buried deep in the cave. And in there are about 47 parchment. And since then, scholars have been studying them and tried to understand the sources and try to find out where they come from, what happened. So from various sources, biblical scholars, they think it was buried around the time after the Nicene Council. So let me explain a little bit more into that so you understand. So the earlier Christianity was very suppressed. After Jesus Christ was crucified, the followers spread out and tried to keep a low profile, hide themselves. And they tried to follow the practice of what Jesus was teaching them. But they did not gain prominence, even though slowly it getting popular. And we have a lot of documentation because they have a lot of Roman historian, a lot of Greek historian who was writing about that time. So we can do research and we can find about it. So at some point, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity Then after that, the bishop, in those days, the bishop are more the leader of the early Christianity, start to have more power and more authority to dictate the teaching of Jesus Christ. And then we have a Council of Nicaea in Turkey. In nowadays, it's called Izmir, Turkey. And we have three councils, 324 of the Common Era, 381 at Constantinople, which is currently Istanbul, and also 481 of the Common Era. So at that time, the authority of Christianity make a decision to book what we call a canonical gospel. And it included the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And everything else is deemed heretical. That means contrary of the teaching of Jesus. And then they announced that it should be banned or burned, or the other teaching. So according to biblical scholars, they think that around that time, that's where a certain follower of some Christian community start to bury those parchment in a cave to hide that from being destroyed, being burned. And those parchment of the gospel got hidden and buried in a cave for almost like a 15th century until 1945 when it discovered. And there's many scholars who have found some similar parchment from the French delegation and also from the German archaeologists, but the fragment was partial. And when we discover the Nag Hammadi parchment, it has a complete version. And when they study, they compare with the parchment that was found earlier, they found that it was a complete collection. And of course, many parchments were destroyed too, but there was enough information for them to be sure that this is, according to some written, it was the teaching, the saying of Jesus Christ. So for the next 20 years, 30 years, a lot of scholars have been studying and have been trying to translate it, because it was written in the original Syriac language and it was copied in the Coptic language, which is a lot into the Greek language before somebody else copy into different parchment. So to me, this is very important finding, and it's open to the wider understanding or interpretation of Christianity, rather than just to study only the New Testament. So if you know, there are 13 disciples of, or we call apostle of Jesus Christ. So to me, I found that if we really want to fully understand what Jesus is teaching, I think it's good to have another point of view, another way of understanding the various sources of the teaching of Jesus. So I when I take a look of the 13 apostles. According to many source documents, they say Peter is the first leader of the church. But then I look at how come the canonical gospel only mention about the 4 apostles? And if there is, it was this same gospel that talk about the other disciple, not directly from Peter. And then they say that some source document they say Simon also are the leader of the Christianity. But we hear very little about the other apostle. And then we have also James the Just, Philip, Simon the Zealot, Bartholomew, Andrew, and James the son as well. And later on, it was Paul. Paul is a very important personality who come later into Christianity. And then also I noticed all over the Bible, they mention whenever Jesus is teaching, there's the presence of Mary Magdalena. So to me, Mary Magdalena should be the 14th apostle. Of course, in those days, people will look in a different way the view of men and women. And also they were discrediting because she is the one who are without family. In those days, the women with a family are not of a reputable, woman. So it's to me, it's a big way of discrediting. Now, very important in the Gnostic gospel, because now the Gnostic gospel is a more. There are a lot more gospel into the Gnostic gospel, which is a collection that we found in Nag Hammadi. And I didn't know at that time, but Elaine Pagel, at that time, she was a specialist in Nag Hammadi. And she wrote the book, The Gospel of Thomas. And later on, she wrote the book, The Gnostic Gospel. Gnostic is more like, spiritual or psychic or something like that. That means you discover the teaching of Jesus through your insight, through your vision, to some secret understanding, rather than that relying only on the word. And there's many community like Essene at that time that are preaching the way to understand the teaching of Jesus. And of course, later on, after the Council of Nicaea, they decide that those are not very concrete. We want something more concrete into what we call the historical dimension. And it starts to ban all the other teaching. So here's the copy of the book I have here. Actually, this was purchased in 1995. I think it was in the Maple Forest Monastery. I bought it back when we moved from Vermont to Blue Cliff Monastery. And I have my own book, but I probably left in Plum Village, Upper Hamlet, when I moved to France. So I bought the copy of this in 1995 as a retreat as well. And finally, I got a hold of the Gnostic Gospel by Elaine Pagel. And she wrote this book in 1979. And I got a copy and I started reading. And then I remember I bought the book before. I think probably back in 1981 when I was a student at Temple University. I didn't know the significance of that, but I was reading, I was curious about it. I tried to find another way of explaining the Bible to me. And this is one of the earlier books that she wrote concerning the discovery that was at Nag Hammadi. And here's another book by David Henderson. It talks about the conversion of Constantine and the Council of Nicaea. So actually, we have a lot of information. And I invite you, if you get the chance to discover, to find out for yourself, and to try to understand implication of this discovery. And also, I'm studying now the Nag Hammadi scripture. This is a more complete version by James Robinson, who has been working for 4 decades now. And I think this is published in 2000. 2007. So some more complete version of everything. And inside also they have the Gospel of Mary Magdalena. So I intend, if I have time, I will read it and study that too. And also, of course, Elaine Pago also contribute to the book as well. So the Gospel of Thomas has 114 sayings of Jesus. And the interesting thing is, in the Gospel of Thomas, is a conversation Jesus has with his disciple. His disciple asks question, and he answers. So, of course, they don't mention anything about nativity. They don't mention about the miracle. It just the disciple would try to ask Jesus, "What are you teaching? How am I going to stand it?" And Jesus answer in parable, in story, a kind of mystical a little bit, and that's why we have the word Gnostic, So now, if we can look about what I will share to you is we have a 4 canonical gospel of the New Testament. Actually, there are more gospel, but basically it attribute to the 4 main apostles. And now we have discovered the lost gospel in the Egyptian cave. And also, I want you to share about, often there are a lot of difference of opinion about how we interpret the teaching of Christianity. So at some point in time in Europe, there was a lot of dissident. People who say, well, I want to understand the teaching of Jesus, but I don't want the way you explain Jesus to me. I want to have another interpretation. And I was lucky because my family live in Switzerland. So I went to Switzerland, and in my spare time, I went to Geneva. I went to the house of John Calvin. And he's the one who started the first movement of Protestantism. They call Calvinism. I didn't know at the time, but Geneva at that time was a free city. So that means any people who have a dissident, disagree, or being pursued by whatever government, like France, Germany, or something, they go hiding in Geneva. And so all the dissidents, all the have a different opinion, like Corneille, Racine, they all hide in Geneva at the time. And it was like a free city, so for a lot of intellectual, a lot of religious dissidents who live there and who continue their voice about it. And of course, later on in Germany, they start the movement, Martin Luther. He's a German. He started the Lutheran movement, and that's the beginning of Protestantism, you know. And for many years, they have a war between the Catholics and the Protestants. They have what we call the Inquisition, the period, and all kind of things. And the Church of England also have another branch in Westminster, and they start another Protestant movement. And so many of the immigration or people coming to the U.S., actually, there were dissidents who are persecuted. Even in Canada, there was Catholic Christian who immigrate because they were persecuted for their belief. So, and of course, the more liberal is the Quaker. Also, William Penn, who was one, and he decided to come and accept the place in U.S. He formed a state of Pennsylvania, which I live in Philadelphia at the time. And the more interesting thing is the personality of Thomas Jefferson. Of course, you know he's the third president of the United States. But he also a devout Christian. I didn't know at the time, but he studied the King James Bible very diligently. And I was introduced in a very interesting way. Of course, you know, I live in Philadelphia, so I know he's the writer of the Declaration of Independence. He was a brilliant lawyer, and he a Renaissance man. He studied a lot of things, and he has 1,000 books in his library. And he's famous for writing the Declaration of Independence of the United States. But then we went to Washington, D.C. often to teach mindfulness at the Wang Monastery. I went there at least 10 times. So I remember there were one year we decided to go to the National Museum. There were about 16, 17 National Museum for free. So we parked the car and we go, we intend to go, we like the dinosaurs, so the National Museum, and we like NASA Space, you know, Museum. But the first museum we come open after parking the car is the Museum of American History. So I took the brother and sister there quickly, and I said, okay, after half an hour we went to the Museum of Natural History. So I quickly go take a look at the American History Museum, and I went up to the third floor just to be curious. And when I come up after the elevator, I saw there a big glass encasing, and in there was a copy of the King James Bible, but it was carved like a Swiss cheese. It has holes everywhere. So I'm curious. I come, who would cut the Bible like that, you know? And I come, I take a look and say, this is a copy, the original copy of the King James Bible by Thomas Jefferson. So I'm curious. I read some more about Thomas Jefferson, and it turned out during the time that he was president of the United States. Now, this is a secret at the time. He has two King James Bible, one original. Actually, he had three, actually. And one they intend to cut. And he bought a third book, blank. So he was studying, this is the teaching of Jesus and so on. And they say that, okay, I think this is, what Jesus would have taught. So he cut out the saying, and he pasted in the blank book. And he do that night after night after night for about 2 years or 3 years. I don't know how many years, unbeknown to people. So what we do, he create his own version of the Bible. Because he's a scientific man, he built his own house in Monticello. We went to visit them. So to me, that was revolutionary. Of course, he wrote Declared Independence, so he was revolutionary. But it's revolutionary in the sense of spirituality, of how one approach Christianity. So to me, he's a very important personality. And when we discover the gospel in Nag Hammadi, there were a lot of scholars who had some different opinion about what the sources and what they say. But to me, the existence of the Thomas Jefferson Bible make it more easy to accept and understand another version of the teaching of Christianity. So I got a book. Sure where I have it. No, I didn't bring it here. But this is the Jefferson Bible, the life and moral of Jesus of Nazareth. So, of course, surprisingly, separately from the discovery of Nag Hammadi, in his acceptance of the teaching of Jesus, they never talk anything about the miracle. It just talk about how Jesus planned to live and how Jesus was teaching his follower how to behave, how to treat other people. So that's why they say the life and moral of Jesus of Nazareth. And for many years, many congressmen, when they elected to official duty, and when they have to swear in ceremony, they choose the Thomas Jefferson Bible instead of the King James Bible to have a swear in. I don't know what happened now, what people do now, but to me, this is a very important book for me to understand. And also, it helped me to be more understanding of learning about the gospel of Nag Hammadi. And this is an article by Owen Edwards. So there are many source information for us to find out about it. Andrew Sullivan wrote Jesus Without the Miracle at Time magazine. I'm curious, I was reading about that. And Eric Rice, they talk about the ethical teaching of Jesus in the Harper magazine. And of course, Thomas Jefferson wrote his own. So to me, there are many very serious Christians who has been trying to understand more about the teaching of Christianity. Both Andrew Sullivan and Eric Rice are third generation of preacher. Their grandfather was preaching the Bible, their grandfather was preaching the Bible, and by the time he was studying the Bible, he found that I need to find another approach of understanding the Bible because it's not helping in daily life how to do that. And of course, Thay, when he was in the U.S., he was studying. He made friends with a lot of Christian brothers. Mark Andrews talked about the friendship between Martin Luther King and Thich Nhat Hanh, our teacher. Jim Forrest followed our teacher for many years. He part of Fellowship Reconciliation. And he wrote a book, Eye of Compassion, which is a talk about our teacher. And Robert King talked about the friendship between Thomas Merton and Thich Nhat Hanh. And Daniel Merrigan wrote The Raft is Not the Other Shore. So this is the article by Eric Rice, Jesus Without a Miracle. And here's Robert King. He talked about the friendship between Thomas Merton and Thich Nhat Hanh. And this is the book by Mark Andrews. Talk about the beloved community, friendship between Thich Nhat Hanh and Martin Luther King. Okay, so let's come to the third part about what is the similarity between the teaching of Christianity and the similarity between Buddhism. And of course, the one that united between a lot of Christian and Buddhists at the time is to stop the violence, to stop the killing, and to stop the war. In order to develop loving kindness, compassion, and help toward the destitute and the poor. And that is a lot of common ground among any religious person. Whatever you're preaching, I think it has to do with how you can be kind, how you can be compassionate, how you can be loving, and how you treat other people. And to me, that is the main thing about spirituality, regardless of any religion. So among the 114 sayings at the Gospel of Thomas, there were too many. I just select just 3, and I will show to you. So when the disciple asked Jesus, where is the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus answered them, the kingdom is inside you and is outside of you. And when you know yourself, then you will become known. Then you realize that it is you who are the Son of the living Father. And I think Elaine Pagels didn't like the word son because it was translated from the Greek. And she said, well, it is you who are the children of the living Father. So the word is say the living Father. So it is an actual person in front of you. It is, and we are the children, not just Jesus. So it's very different interpretation of the teaching of Christianity that sometimes many people don't agree with. But to me, that's very Zen. And there were a lot of talk about the resurrection. And in many gospel and they have different saying when the disciple of Jesus was seeing Jesus in a vision, in the trance, in a more abstract way, rather than see the person in flesh. And there were some sources that were saying that seeing Jesus in flesh. And so there are many different interpretations, because the implication, if we can see that that the teaching of Jesus can be revived in each of us when we follow the practice, and which is what the early Christian was doing that, then we are the descendant of the living Jesus. We are the descendant of the living Father. And then at the number 23, Jesus would say, when we make the two into one, and when you make the inside like the outside, the above like the below, and that's very Zen. When you dissolve yourself, that there's no separation between you and another person, then you understand the kingdom of heaven. And on the 25th saying, I say, love your brother like your soul, and guard him like a pupil of your eyes. So it talk about being kind, talk about being loving, talk about being compassionate, talk about taking care of the others. So the same thing in Buddhism, we say the ultimate dimension cannot be said to be inside, outside. It's just there. When you break out the lens of yourself, then you be in contact with ultimate dimension. And you know yourself, let go of separate notion, and we are here to transform the illusion of the separate self. And when you practice the four immeasurable mind of love, mean loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equality, inclusiveness, then you see what we call ultimate dimension, or you see the kingdom of heaven. So Thay often say that he practiced the Eucharist with many Christians. And it talk about the Trinity in Christianity and Buddhism. So in the Trinity, there is a Holy Father, the Holy Son, which is the Son of Man and the Son of God, and the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Breath. And in Buddhism, we talk about the ultimate dimension, or the awakened one, with the Buddha, and the human who are bodhisattva, which sometimes we call part-time Buddha. We have some insight, but we don't have insight all the time. And the holy breath, or the mindful breath, and it united the body and mind, and slowly we rediscover ourselves, just like the Gospel Thomas was saying, or just like the Buddhist scripture were saying. And I like saying, often they say, nobility comes from the practice. That means when we practice uniting our body and mind, using mindfulness, concentration, insight, then you can achieve nobility of the soul. Because it's very important, because often there were a lot of different opinions about who is qualified to teach Christianity. Originally, it was fall upon the follower of Jesus, which is the 13 disciples. But then after that, when the 13 apostles passed away, then who is next? And slowly the bishop, who are the student, the disciple of the apostle, take up the mantle and become a leader of the church. And eventually we elect the Pope, which is representing the leader of the church. However, we, in a different interpretation, that we can be accessed directly with the Holy Spirit. And we can be access to the teaching of Jesus directly. And that's what the Essenes were doing. That's what the Gnostic Christian were doing. And to some extent, because I sit with a Quaker too, the Quaker also understand that you sit together and you quake or you shake, and you become in a trance, and you get with the inner insight of what it is a soul of the human nature. So you don't need to go through somebody to interpret you. Of course, if you are not really a scholar, if you don't understand the scripture, you don't understand, then you need to study, but then not to be too dogmatic about it, and you have to question about it. And I like Thay would say, it's safe to approach God through the Holy Spirit than through theology, which is a dogma. So to me, I think it's very good to understand that, because recently Thay gave a teaching on Brahmanism in India, and it talked about the same thing. It talked about Brahma, which is the ultimate being, and then the Atma, which is the soul of the person, and you have to go through the Brahman, the priests, who are helping you to be connected with the Atma, with the Brahma, and then you have to go through a certain process, and the people are elected to teach. So to me, it gives a more liberal approach how to understand spirituality that is inherent to each of us. But then we need to have some teacher who help us to understand and practice and to achieve a certain kind of liberation. So I share with you my introduction to Christianity. I offer you a wider view of the teaching of Christianity. I show you the similarity between Christianity teaching and Buddhist teaching. And also I want to introduce you some good Christian encounter. So of course, I love Thomas Merton. Thay went to visit him at the Zen monastery. And he's a Trappist, I think, monk at the time. So he lived in the community of monks. And often he has a praise for Thay. He say that I have a lot of more in common between Thich Nhat Hanh than many of my fellow. He said that when I see how Thay open the door and close the door, he said, I know it's authentic monk. Because how mindful, how loving, and how solid the gesture, the practice of his doing. And of course, the Daniel Berrigan, I have a book here. He went to Plum Village, and he had a wonderful conversation between Thay. I think it's back in 1980 something. And I was reading about it. I think it's quite good, because some of the things that he talked about is still applied today. I have a good dialogue between Daniel Berrigan. There are two brothers, Berrigan, and basically they oppose the war because they create a lot of killing, a lot of destruction. They want to stop the war. So in that one, they united in brotherhood to help to stop the killing, stop the violence. And of course, Jim Forrest also, he wrote recently a book, Eye and Compassion. I'm not sure I have it. So he working with the Fellowship Reconciliation, so he got a chance to travel often with Thay, and then I think he married the daughter of one of the Thai friends in the Quaker community. And of course, David Standard Ross, he went to Plum Village to have conversation with Thai. And recently, he went back to Plum Village back in 2000, maybe 10 or 11. So you can see on YouTube, they have an interview with him, with Thai. And for my personal experience, actually, I remember back in 1975 when I came to the U.S., I was, fresh off the boat kind of thing. And I didn't know what to do. I went to Temple University and I enrolled to study. And at that time, there was a woman named Barbara. He's an international student advisor. She guided me, she helped me a lot. And she's very kind, very compassionate, very loving. And it's just exactly how I would see how a good Christian to be. And later on, I went to Plum Village to become a monk in 2003. And 2005, I came back to the U.S. To be at the Maple Forest Monastery in Vermont. And I left three small boxes of my personal belonging. And the friend come up to Vermont, and she delivered the 3 boxes to me so I can look. And I looked, there was a small notebook of the address and name of the person. So I found about it, and I thought maybe it's time for me to call her to thank her for her help. So I've been searching, and luckily by then the internet is there. I was searching for her, and finally I found her. I called many places, tried to ask her, and I was very surprised because finally I say, "Are you the student advisor at Temple University back in 1975 and so on?" And she said, "Yeah, I know." So I said, "Well, I'm now Brother Dharma Emptiness, and I used to be called Deep Nguyen, and I used to be a young student, study at Temple University." And she said, "Yeah, okay, I remember you." And she said, "Do you know what? I'm a nun now. I'm a Christian, and I'm a Catholic nun." So we have a good conversation. I think it's wonderful. I get a chance to send my gratitude for her for helping me. And she said, well, she was disappointed about the dogma a little bit. She tried her best to follow the spiritual path on her own. So we have a good conversation about it, and we wish each other success in our path. And of course, they have John Fury, Maureen Donegan. They helped me a lot. And we were working in a French restaurant in those days, trying to study, to finish our study. They are Catholics from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And the other one is Margaret Duville and the 500 Grey Sister. We go often to Canada to give a tour. So I was able to go at least, I don't remember how many times, maybe 12 times, because I speak French. So there was a certain part of Quebec province when people speak French. And our lay friend in Ottawa, they organize a retreat. So they find a place to rent so we can have a retreat for like 4 or 5 days. And from time to time, they ran at University of Ottawa. From time to time, they ran at the Marguerite Center in Pembroke. So we went there. I'm not sure how many brothers and sisters go with me at that time. I know Sister Jiang go almost every time. And we met the Great Sister. They call French, they call the Sœurs Grises. They follow Margaret Duville. And the center we call Marguerite Durard. At that time, the Great Sister stayed there and practiced. They have their own altar, and they work as what we call a nurse or medical aides to the hospital within walking distance. So that they've been doing for the last 100 years until the last of the great sister are too old, and then the state of Ottawa will take care of them. And we were there toward the end, and we talked to some of the great sisters, and they come to the retreat with us, and they come to the Dharma sharing with us. And I remember they were saying the youngest nun in that time is 75 years old. And they couldn't find newer recruit. So sometimes you start with a very good leader, spiritual leader, and you create a big movement. At one time, there are 500 great sisters, and they spread to have a mission all over the world. But their headquarters is in Montreal and also in Quebec, and also in Ottawa in those days. So I mean, I'm glad I got the chance to see them and I talk to them. And I think to me, they're a wonderful example of good Christian. Of course, you know, I don't have enough time to mention Mother Teresa also. She had to persuade to form her own order to help the destitute, to put it in India. And also because my family is from Switzerland, so actually I'm more partial to Swiss citizen. Actually, Alexandre Yersin, actually, he come from the Marsh area, which is near to where my family live in Switzerland. And he's also a benefactor of humanity. He's Christian. So he's a discoverer of the bubonic plague virus that helped to eradicate the plague. And also he helped to open and expand the city of Dalat. And when I was a high school student, I studied at the Lycée Yersin in Dalat. So to me, he's very dear to me. The Vietnamese still venerate him a lot. They have a tomb in Vietnam. He devoted all his life in Vietnam, and he passed away in Vietnam. And Aline Ribot is, maybe many of you might not know, but in Vietnam, she is known as Co Team, mean Sister Heart. Basically, she was a backpacker, a Swiss backpacker. She was traveling around and in the early day in Vietnam. And she was eating a pho, which is like a famous Vietnamese soup, you know. And she found there were some destitute children, handicapped children, who were sitting by the side, waiting for people to finish eating, and they would take their bowl and they would eat the leftover food. So she said, well, that is crazy. I mean, I need to So she ordered 2 other bowls of soup, and she invited 2 children to come and eat with her. And then after, she said that their face was so dirty, their clothes were so dirty. So she ran a hotel room. She bring the hotel, and she cleaned it up, and she bought some clothes, she changed it. And lo and behold, she find out they are disabled, incapacitated somehow. Maybe they couldn't walk or something. So she said, well, I have to find friends to rent a room and try to take care of them. And then she started what we call maison chance, meaning like nhà may mắn is good luck house. So she started, and now she's been like 40 years now. And she started village chance, which is a village, a luck village. And recently she started another village in Dak Lak, where Brother Dharma Choice is there. Basically, they teach the handicapped people some skill. Of course, they took them in, They give a teaching and they teach them some skill. For example, you couldn't walk or something, but you could walk with your hand. You can create art craft or something, and you can sell it. So then, and then she go fundraising to help them. So to me, she's like a modern, she speaks personally good Vietnamese. So people really like her. To me, she's a modern version of Mother Teresa. So she's to me as a good Christian. And of course, there are many local churches that we ended up renting. We recently made a Northeast American tour, and we went to 6 states. And often we went to, I think Yale was a Christian center before. There was some church there. We went there. And we went to Smith College. We went to Trinity Church. We went to many places that our local lay friend was renting. And we have also the Reverend Eileen Mahoney here, which is help us with the tour. So to me, she's a wonderful Christian. And of course, Joan Friday, she was a lay Dharma teacher, very dear to me. I often share with her on this stage before. She passed away and been Mensa as well. And recently also, Father Mark D'Alessio, I went to Adelphi University, and he was an OI member. He was there. He's a Franciscan father, but also he practiced mindfulness. And so so they have a lot of good friendship between Christian and Buddhists. And that will be called a living tradition of Christianity and a living tradition of Buddhism. So to me, I think that on the day of birthday of Jesus Christ, I thought it'd be wonderful to have another look at what Jesus Christ meant to me, what the teaching of Christianity meant to me, and also to make a bridge between Christianity and Buddhism. So I don't really versatile in all the scripture or all the gospel, because for me it's very hard to read it, and I can only approach it from the way our teacher is showing me the way, and I practice with that. So this is what the lining of the thing here. You have some time? Okay, good. So, to me, I like what Tai was saying. The kingdom of heaven or the ultimate dimension is available here and now. It's up to us to use our holy breath, to use our mindful breath to unite the body and mind in the present moment. And everything belongs to the kingdom of heaven, which is available to us. We just need to open our heart and soul to be there. So it's up to us, And of course, we use mindfulness meditation. It helps to reduce stress, awaken to spirituality. So we use a meditation. We use our breathing, and also we create a balance into our life, a balance between all the feeling, sensation, and also to have a stress reduction, and to have that awareness of body and mind, and also we open ourselves to our soul, which is our spiritual part, Buddhists, what we call sometimes the psychic or the Gnostic were sharing about how we can achieve the inner belonging to the living tradition of Christianity. So in the past, I got a chance to share a few times about Christianity, and I didn't get the chance to introduce my source information. So hopefully now I got the slides, so I can show you some of my source information. I invite you to, if you're curious, to take a look at it and study them and see what are. There are hundreds and hundreds of scholars who have been studying that for the last 50 years. So we owe to them to read some of the findings that have been doing. They devote their life to research it, and also to me for the anniversary of Jesus Christ. I think we owe to him to open our mind to learn another way to approach Christianity. Thank you very much.